I understand, but not fully, what you have been going through for the last couple of days. I do know that you were focused on be still and know that I am God. I kind of shortened my title, Be Still and Know That I Am. The reason for that is, what did God tell Moses when Moses said, who am I going to say sent me? I am. Okay, so it seemed redundant to me. Be still and know that I am God, God. So I just kept it simple. But I want to talk to you and with you uh, about Moses. Moses to me was really kind of a really neat character. And if you remember going back to Moses in Exodus 3:13, Moses is with God at the burning bush. However, before that, he lived a life of luxury for 40 years in Pharaoh's household. He learned the language, he became a military expert, and he was liked and loved by the people of Egypt. At the time of the burning bush, Moses was 80 years old, remembering that 40 years of that was spent in Pharaoh's household. The other 40 was in tending the sheep of his father-in-law. Interesting name, his father-in-law his name was Reuel, Reuel. Interesting that is defined as a friend of God. Now here's Moses, comes out of Pharaoh's household. Think of the luxury that must have meant. And we know that he was liked by the people of Egypt and even the Pharaoh, because Pharaoh kept promoting him. In Acts 20 or 7:22, Stephen is talking about Moses, and he says Moses was great in words and deed. Well, when I first read that, I thought, wait a second now. What was Moses' primary reason for not going and speaking to Pharaoh and his household? Now remember, this is a different Pharaoh. It's not the same one that he had a good relationship with. He died. The new Pharaoh said, hey, send him out to the field, make bricks, do all that kind of stuff. They weren't really joined together. But mighty in word and deed. And it's like, okay, something must have happened with Moses that he no longer was mighty in word. Because the only thing he was doing was tending sheep, living with his father-in-law, married to the man's daughter. And now you can bet that Moses was really getting good advice, because his father-in-law's name was what? Friend of God. So a friend of God living with 40 years. And do we hear anything at all about Moses going before the Lord and saying, I came out of this house of luxury. Now I'm wandering around with these sheep. What's up? What are you calling me to do? So we see in Scripture not a lot of words about what was going on. So I always thought, when Nancy told me, be still, Moses for 40 years was being still. He had no one to speak to except the friend of God. So he's in this situation where he's trying to figure out, I can only imagine. I go through this, you've probably going through this. Lord, what would you have me to do? Where do you want me to be? What am I to become? We go through these times of trials and tribulations in our life trying to figure out, what are we as Christians? What are we called to do? So you can just imagine that Moses was going through the same thing for 40 years of herding sheep. Little did he know that he was in job training. Nancy told a little story about my background. Everything that I wound up doing, whether it was scuba diving or sailing, I became an instructor. I became a master diver, master instructor. Then I became a sailor. Interesting transition, because we had a couple of very bad experiences at depth with students. And one day, the man that I was partnered with in working in the business, said, we got to find something to relax. And we just happened to be driving past and saw this sign on this small sailboat that said, for sale. And we both thought, wow, that's it. We can relax and go sailing, but that's a whole other story. But as soon as I started sailing, I had to become an instructor. I became a U.S. Coast Guard licensed 100-ton operator. I became a master in U.S. sailing, became proficient in there so that I learned how to sail, but also to instruct. God had been planning for me all along to be able to take something that I had a passion for and then learn how to teach that so I could pass it on. But little did I know that God had another plan for my teaching. God knocked on my heart 3 times, and he wanted me to answer the call. But I had other plans. My wife wasn't too happy about some of them because part of that was we were going to move down to the islands and we were going to run a charter business and a dive business down there. And we actually spent, how many weeks down there? 2 or 3 weeks trying to figure out. And the only thing she said to me is, I'm not staying here. I'm not living here. So that ended that. But God ended it because he had another plan. And that was to be ordained. Surprised the heck out of me. I was amazed. I think it was you that was speaking about your college and how, maybe it wasn't, I'm not sure, about drugs and alcohol and all those kinds of things that you pursued in your life, but then God knocked on your heart. Well, you never know until you're still before the Lord. Because I started to think, okay, you want me to be ordained? This doesn't fit into what I want to do. That was the second knock. The third knock was, listen up. This is what you will do. So we have to be still before the Lord. But isn't it amazing that Moses had to go before a burning bush? I mean, just listen to this. Now Moses was keeping the flock of his father-in-law Jethro, the priest of Midian, and he led his flock to the west side of the wilderness and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. And the angel of God appeared to him in the flame of fire out of the midst of a bush. Now, God didn't set anything on fire, but my heart. He actually, I don't mean literally, he actually grabbed a hold of me that third time. Okay, whole other story. And Moses said, I think I'll turn aside to see this great sight. I mean, a burning bush. I think I'll turn aside and see what's happening here. Have you ever had your experience with the Lord where you're pretty sure he's talking to you? You're not totally positive, but there's that still small voice speaking to your heart. You ever have that? Did you answer? Eventually. That's the key. Eventually. So Moses is there looking at this bush, trying to figure out, and then the Lord said, I have seen the affliction of my people who are in Egypt. What did he ask Moses to do before he started speaking to him? Take off your shoes, you are on holy ground. You have to reposition yourself. You have to start thinking, if God is speaking to me, there's a holiness in that voice that I need to stop what I'm doing, take off the things of the world, and listen and be still. Moses' response after all of this. Why me? Why me? Do you think I might have said that to myself? Lord, why do you keep knocking on my heart? My passion is sailing. I want to get down to the islands. I want to do all that. Is that you again, Lord? Mm-hmm. Yes, it is. What do you want me to do? Mm-hmm. I want you to teach my word. I want you to go out and teach my word. But why me? Who do you think I am that I could have managed such a difficult task? Look at my background and my history. This was the first of 5 excuses that Moses gave to God about God calling him to do something. He also stated that he doesn't know enough about this God and who he is, that no one would seriously listen to him. No, sounds like me. Lord, if I showed you a picture of my dive license, it looks like somebody from the hippie generation and, all of that kind of stuff. It's like, Lord, look at this picture. You want me to go in front of, shape up, change your life, turn it around, be that which I've called you to be. But Lord, wait a minute. This doesn't sound like something I'm able to seriously do. I'm not an elegant speaker. I don't speak all that well. And he says, well, what have you been doing for the last 30, 40 years? Well, yeah, but that's talking about diving and sailing, and I can't do your word. Be still and know that I am. We too might be waiting for God to speak to you specifically for something, and you know what? Maybe it's not even something that you had actually thought about doing. But God has other plans. And we say to ourselves, yeah, but I can't do that. How many times have I talked to people that says, I've been praying all along that God would do this for me? I'm not hearing anything. And I would say to them, you're not hearing anything? Well, I'm hearing this stuff over here, but I don't want to do that. I'm not good at that. I just want to do this. And God says, guess what? I'm in the business of remaking people, transformed, brought into a new life, walking in a different walk, singing a different song. Listen to me. One of my favorite scriptures is in in Proverbs. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not upon your own understanding. But in all your ways acknowledge him and he will show you the way to go. Yeah, but I don't want to go that way. How about if I go, and I even talked with Pam, I said, once I'm ordained, we can take our sailboat, we'll put a little cup up there and we'll give communion and I'll, no. It's not the plan, Bob. Okay, Lord. Okay. So while you're waiting for God to answer what it is that you want to do, pay attention to what he wants you to do. We recite, and I hope you do, and I'm assuming you have learned 46:10 Psalm, so it's almost like printed on your forehead. Be still. Be still and know that God, what? Loves you with an everlasting love. He will never leave you nor forsake you. He'll always be there. Even if you think it's not something that you want to do, the Lord will be with you. And one day you'll say, boy, I'm glad I took that path. Do I still miss sailing? You bet you do. It's my earthly passion. But you might notice I have to keep my head still. You know how God got me out of sailing? 40 years of what's called repetitive action. Hauling up halyards, looking up at that stupid little thing on the top of the mast, cranking in sails, and it wore out the first three vertebrae of my neck. Happened down there in Key West when we were sitting at a bar, and all of a sudden it's like, whoa, what the heck is that? That was what, 12, 14 years ago? 16 years ago? God said, so you want to be stiff-necked? Well, I hadn't this in mind, but it changed my course because I could no longer sail. Then I had to get shoulder replacement, all things from doing the things that I had a passion for. Well, now I have a passion for the Lord. God puts us through things that we never thought that we would ever do. So when you're still before the Lord and you say, Lord, what is it that you would have me to do? Listen intently. Because God speaks in a still small voice. Do you remember who was the prophet? Who was it? Elijah. In a cave. And what does it say? Strong wind, rocks blew, fire came, but God spoke in a still small voice and said, what are you still doing here? When you listen to God, listen for him to say to you, what are you still doing the same thing that you were doing 5, 10 years ago? I'm calling you to something different. Now, I'm not saying you're going to get a placard, you're going to walk down the street, the end is coming soon. I'm not talking about that. Always look for God and how he's going to move and change little things in your life that can also bring change in other people's lives. That's what we're called to do. What is the Great Commission? Yeah, make disciples. Had a man tell me, I can't make a disciple. I said, I know you can't, but God can. And he's telling you, go alongside these people and bring them to a greater understanding of biblical truth. That's all. Sounds like a lot, but I can tell this group sitting here, after going through why I love Jesus, I would think you can't wait to get outside those doors and start telling people about why you love Jesus. Maybe it's family, maybe we don't know. But think about Moses now. 40 years, tending sheep. What was God getting him ready for? Leading hundreds of thousands of people through the desert wilderness. I mean, I can't imagine. But God also gave him the strength to do it. So as you think, great word, ponder what you've just gone through in the last several days, but also where are you in your Christian life? And I always like to ask this question. Where were you a year ago? How about 3 years ago? How about 5 years ago? Then I like to reverse it. Where do you want to be a year from now? 3 years from now? 5 years from now? Because it's not just looking in the rearview mirror about what you did, where you've been. It's looking out the windshield about where you're going to be and how you're going to travel there. But it all takes prayer for guidance. Lord, what would you have me to do? Who would you have me speak to today? Pam and I have a thing, it's called nudging. When God nudges you and you're standing in the Walmart line, frustrated because the person up in front finally got their wallet open, they can't find their credit card, they can't, it's like, holy crap. You're standing there, and the Lord says, speak to her. What do I want? Speak to her. Ask her if she needs prayer. Do you know how many times people say, oh, yes? Do you know how many times your waitress, when they bring your food, say, thank you very much. Is there anything I can pray for you for? Do you know how many people say, well, yeah, there is something? And short prayer. I mean, it doesn't need to be a long homily type prayer. I mean, just a short prayer. Look for that guidance. Look for the guidance of your Christian friends. There's nothing wrong with asking and sitting down with a Christian friend and saying, I'm troubled by this. You can't stand alone. Because in the darkness of night, the troubles will come. So we rest and be still before Him, because He will send you someone to pray with, talk to. We never go it alone. Be still. Be still. Listen. Wait for God. Ask Him, what would you have me to do that's different than I'm doing right now? And yes, Lord, I know it's going to be change, but what? Because I know you'll give me the strength to overcome it. There's a word, it's called rafal, which translated means to let go, to drop your hands, relax and surrender, cease striving. But that's not what I want to do, Lord. What I want you to do is change this over here so I can do that and go, shh, rafal, be still. Stop striving. Listen to me. Be of good cheer, because I have only good plan for you. When we start to take on an attitude of, God, you know more than I could ever know, we start to be able to distinguish options, to make sound decisions by weighing those options. There's another important Greek word, diakonias, meaning to distinguish between something. You want to do this, God says this. Well, diakonias, distinguish. Think about it. Now, I know what I'm saying could be troubling to you, because God might be calling you to do something you're really not ready to do, but God will prepare you. Distinguishing means knowing the difference between God's voice, the world, and yourself. Keep that in mind. If I ask God for something, guess what? There's a lot of voices that are going to start to enter into my thoughts. The things of the world, the things of my own flesh. And never forget, Satan is always looking to ambush you. And if Satan's looking to ambush you, what do we need? The full armor of God. When we have the full armor of God, we go out with confidence, assurance. We take our hits, but remember the shoes that you wear, they only have spikes in the front part of the shoe. You know why? Press forward. Keep moving forward. Don't get back on your heels, because you don't have any balance back there. But I do if I press forward. In your time this week, go through chapter 4 and see what happens with Moses in chapter 4. It's really interesting if you haven't read that. Philippians 3:12 to 16. Having set myself with God's Spirit He guides me day by day and leads me to where he wants to go.